have you. That's why. All right, let's call the February Capital Program Committee meeting to order. I know that there are a couple other board members who are going to be joining us in a minute, but I just want to get us going so we catch up some time. Do we have members of the public signed up to speak, Ms. King?
Yes, good afternoon. We have 6 members registered to speak today. 3 are in person, 3 are remote. As a reminder, we ask that all speakers please adhere to the MTA's rules of conduct and decorum. I would also like to remind our speakers that in the interest of time, everyone is allowed 2 minutes. Please be aware there will be a warning beep letting you know that your 2 minutes have concluded. Our first speaker will be Lisa Daglian, followed by Lisa Jason Anthony, and followed by Jason Anthony will be Omar Vera.
All right. Welcome, Lisa Daglian.
Why, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. I'm Lisa Daglian, Executive Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA PCAC. Today's book focuses primarily on accessibility projects, something we're glad to see in abundance. This work is crucial to ensuring that everyone will be able to access the transit system by 2055, if not sooner, and addresses longstanding inequities. We're excited about the 3P contract that was announced in November and hope it can serve as a model to save time and money in the long run. The inclusion of maintenance in many of the contracts is important to keeping these critical mobility mechanisms moving and assigned responsibility for repair. Unfortunately, that abundance is also matched by unanticipated delays, happily not with attendant cost overruns, and some even with lower than anticipated costs. Some of the delays are born out of addressing changes in state regulations, and others are being addressed with increases in shifts and staffing by the contractors. What is particularly telling, however, is that, quote, the stations team continues to face resourcing challenges to maintain delivery on this large volume of planned and active construction projects, end quote. Please, do what you must to address these challenges so that those challenged by not being able to use transit have a better chance to do so sooner. Getting the projects over the plate quickly will be key to successfully getting more riders back on board, including getting some on board for the first time. Speaking of getting things over the plate, spring training is just days away. Before you know it, Mets fans will be flocking to see my favorite team with hopes in our heart. We continue to hope for making Metsville its point stations accessible, and that team owner Steve Cohn understands the importance of bringing all fans out to the ballgame, not just those who can climb up and down stairs. We remain committed to working with you to find solutions to construction challenges and identify funding opportunities, ideally based on a UBS Elmont style model, and appreciate that you are earnestly looking into accessibility improvements at the stations. It's time we all play ball and hit this one out of the park. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker is Jason Anthony.
Hey, Jano. Hey, Jamie. Thank you for welcoming me to headquarters. Like I was attending all previous meetings virtually. First thing of all, I totally are in support of all the procurements that are in this month's committee book in this month, especially 149th Street Grand Concourse that serves Hunter College, and especially the nearby Lincoln Hospital, the hospital that yours truly was born at nearly 37 years ago. And 68th Street Hunter College on the Lexington Avenue line that serves Hunter College that is well needed. And supporting the point that Lisa Daglian said, Metsville's point on the Flushing line needs an elevator for those fans that go to Mets games during the U.S. Open and for the Flushing Meadows Corona Park. It is time that this station gets an elevator because it is not fair for those that are elderly and people with disabilities have to take the 7 train to Flushing Main Street and take the Q48 that takes forever and take it to City Field and then enter the park. And that's all I have to say for this month. I'll see you guys later in finance.
Thank you for your comments. Omar Vera is the last in-person speaker.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. First of all, let me just congratulate all of you for finally getting the Long Island Railroad running to Grand Central. That's really important. It was a project that was basically spanned nearly 6 decades, but didn't start constructing until like the last 15 or so years. So congratulations on that, and looking forward to seeing it soon. I have one more. The other comment I'd like to make is, have you decided what to assign the R211 A and T? Because what I've heard was that the A was going to the N, Q, and W lines, while the T, the open gangway cars, are going to the A and the C trains. I'm wondering if that's correct, and if it's correct, then fine.
So just a reminder of format, we don't answer questions from the podium, but we will do follow-up.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I got you. All right, that's all I have to say this time around.
Thanks.
Thanks for the hard work. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your comments. Now we'll have the first remote speaker, Alida Dupree.
Thanks again, Chair Janel Lieber. Alida Dupree, for the record, she and her and talk about capital today. I really appreciate the focus on ADA in this meeting. Looks like 18 stations are mentioned here. 8 + 8 + 2. Very important. A week and a half ago, I was in Oakland, California, and attended some disability awareness events. And I think about the challenges trying to get around when elevators don't work. I remember last year in San Francisco, accompanying a good friend of mine from the synagogue, trying to get to BART. And he had to take the bus home because the BART elevator didn't work that day. So we want to make sure we keep our elevators up and running. Very, very important. Not everybody can climb stairs, and sometimes I'm just having a not so good day. So elevators are very, very important. How can we get more of this work done? I know I had some aspirational goals of 50 stations a year. I still think about that goal of 50 stations per year. And I think it's important to update our maps, such as one of these items in the agenda has a map and one of the other items doesn't. So we want to be uniform with our mapping. And 68th Street is especially important. That was a station that I used on a daily basis in my younger days. A friend of mine and I would go to school. I would ride the 6 up to 68th Street Station, meet a friend of mine, and then we'd walk the last mile to school. So that station is very personal and close to me. So I look forward to your discussion today. Always know that we can do more and need to do more. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next remote speaker, Charlton D'Souza.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Chairman. My name is Charlton D'Souza, President of Passengers United. We support all the ADE projects being proposed today. I think it's great. But what about Hollis with the elevators, and what about getting the station redesigned? What about East New York on the Long Island Railroad and also Hunters Point Avenue? So we need that fixed. We did go up to Albany as part of a Passengers United delegation. We were there all day on Wednesday, and we spoke to over 54 legislatures. I was there from 10 a.m. till 5:45 p.m., and it was a huge success. So one of the things that we're calling for is improvements. So right now, with the station agents being taken out of the booths, I was at the Coney Island facility, and the touch screens were not working on the iPads properly. The MetroCard vending machine for reduced fares wasn't working, and you cannot buy or pay with cash to buy an Omni card or to refill an Omni card. That's no good, guys. It defeats the purpose. So then what is the purpose of the customer information center for? So I have issues with that. But in terms of other things, stations need to be renovated. I think, 179th Street, Hillside needs a renovation. There's other stations throughout the system that are just falling apart. So we need more money. But one of the things that we're proposing at Passengers United is to have private companies adopt subway stations. And this was something I talked about in Albany, where they would have exclusive rights to the naming. And look at Wawa Station in Philadelphia. They got $45 million for the station, SEPTA did, and this was in the middle of a forest. So how much are the naming rights of New York City transit stations? Probably in the millions. So yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you. Kevin Zing, our last remote speaker, dropped off. That concludes our public comment session for today.
Thank you, Ms. King. Copies of the January Capital Program Committee minutes have been distributed and are available, as always, on the website. Changes or comments? None. Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve? Second. Thank you. All in favor? The minutes are approved. Any changes to the work plan?
Mr. Chairman, there are no changes to the work plan.
Thank you, Louis. Let me turn it over to Jamie for the President's report.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, members of the committee. Very excited to be providing you with an update at today's meeting. What I want to start with is that today we're releasing our plan for the future of MTA C&D called Stronger Infrastructure, Better Service, the year in review for 2022 and a strategic plan for 2023. It summarizes some of the accomplishments of the last year and, more importantly, looks ahead. There are 25 concrete initiatives and many more direct actions to make the recent successes in delivering the capital program a permanent characteristic of the MTA, and we'll make sure that everyone gets a copy of the report. There are three big pillars to this plan. Of course, executing the program always comes first, as we describe how we'll continue to innovate to more effectively deliver our $55 billion capital program. And I remind you, 83% of which is core infrastructure, on time or ahead of schedule and on or under budget, commensurate with some of the successes that we've had recently. That comes first, but I'm also very pleased that this plan includes us taking responsibility for the long term in a couple of important ways. First of all, in terms of planning for the future, thinking about how the MTA will evolve and adapt to a changing ridership environment, new sustainability needs, and a variety of other factors that we have to confront to continue being the engine of the region's growth and opportunity. You'll hear more about this from C&D over the next few months, first with some preliminary information in the spring, and then with the release of our 20-year capital needs assessment this fall. And I do want to note in relation to some of the speaker comments that we are going through a rigorous process. We've described to the board not only the comparative evaluation that we're undertaking of roughly 20 proposals that have been made from sources far and wide for expanding the system, but also rigorously going through and prioritizing how we make investments in state of good repair and enhancement of existing capital. So what you'll see when we come to the board with that is, for example, how we prioritize stations for ADA accessibility. It's not just one variable. Of course, it relates to riders, but it relates to folks that live around those stations or work around those stations who have special needs for accessibility. It also relates to how we really stagger and look at the whole system for instance, enabling someone to be able to, if a station isn't accessible, to be able to get to the next station, which is accessible. So a whole algorithm being developed as part of the 20-year needs assessment for targeting station accessibility. Just one example of the ways that we're rigorously planning for the future of the system. Also, the last point, building the organization, I particularly see as a priority. This is about how we continue to grow C&D as an organization. And I think, for example, when we talk about hiring and making sure that we have adequate professional resources to be able to manage work, that's what we're in the process of doing. We're having some successes, but this plan shows how we chart the path forward. Of course, I have to emphasize this depends on filling the operating budget gap that we have as an agency at the MTA to continue to support high levels of capital investment and, of course, achieving the benefits of congestion pricing, which are a major component of funding our capital program. So integral to achieving this plan is the measures that are contained in the governor's budget and to us as the MTA finalizing congestion pricing. Speaking of the high levels of investment, this month we're announcing our target for commitments for this calendar year. Last year, we reached an MTA record of $11.4 billion in commitments, which far exceeded our goal that we established at the beginning of last year of $8.1 billion. This year, we'll keep up that extraordinary pace with a goal of $10 billion, which would, on its own, be the record commitment year after last year's milestone. And we'll be keeping up these high levels of investment as we head into the last year of the current capital program in 2024. As always, it's not really about the number. It's about the projects we're advancing and the benefits that they'll bring to our customers. This year's commitment target includes a variety of projects that advance a wide range of goals. It includes investments in the MTA's core infrastructure, critical state of good repair projects like rebuilding Metro-North bridges, overcoating the West End line, rehabilitating the deck of the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. Other core infrastructure priorities like ordering nearly 500 new battery electric buses to advance sustainability, continuing our accessibility push for the Long Island Railroad at Forest Hills, and upgrading reliability through signal modernization on the Fulton A and C line as we push forward with that strategic plan for signal modernization that we briefed the board on recently. Our expansion projects will advance too, with the anticipated early utilities, the early works package for 2nd Avenue Subway Phase 2 taking shape this year as well. On completions, it's the same story. Last year, we reached $6.2 billion in completed work, an increase of over 50% over 2021. This year, our sights are set even higher. Our goal is $10.4 billion in completed projects. And of course, you see a lag from commitments to completions as the project work gets done. So now we're really starting to see those completions get pushed. And I really compliment Mark Roche and the many business unit leaders who work so closely with him to get those completions over the finish line. And we are rigorously focused on not only making sure we hit these completions, but also our estimated cost at completion, which is how we make sure that we control costs in the delivery of the work. Big priorities for this year. The completions will advance key core infrastructure and expansion goals, including major resiliency projects like finishing the Sandy-funded improvements at 207th Street Yard and Coney Island Yards, new accessibility upgrades, which we'll hear from our station's business unit on in a minute, critical state of good repair work all across the system. And we also will reach substantial completion this year for major projects like LIR Third Track, which is in full operation. We need to get to contractual substantial completion this year, and the Long Island Railroad Concourse at Penn Station, which we expect to occur next month. Of course, I'm sure at the Railroad Committee it's been discussed extensively. Grand Central Madison is operating. We're actually, from a capital point of view, grateful to have the opportunity to shake out some of the systems, and we're seeing positive trend lines in all of that work that's happening as we head towards the full service date that we've announced. So lots going on in the capital program. And so I do want to hand it over to hear from our station's business unit today. I did want to mention to the committee that Barney Gray, who was the head of our station's business unit, has moved on and on to new endeavors. He was
Amtrak.
I wasn't going to mention it. we certainly we wish him well, and we wish them well, because any improvement in their performance certainly helps us as well in delivering our capital program, right, Chair?
Amtrak.
So, but nonetheless, Barney made a tremendous contribution. He was here at the advent of the creation of C&D. He stood up this station's business unit, and one of the legacies that he left us is a lot of talented personnel to step into his shoes. We've appointed Bill Montanili as acting station's business unit leader, and Bill's out this week, but we're going to hear from Deputy Station's Business Unit Leader Tony Fabrizio. I do want to just mention, by way of introduction, as was mentioned, we're focused on describing ADA accessibility projects this month. You'll see in a minute, it's about half of the station's program. We'll focus on the other half the next time we come around, in particular, some of the multi-complex, effectively mega projects that the stations group is leading, 14th Street, 42nd Street, and elsewhere. With that, I want to turn it over to Mr. Fabrizio.
All right, thank you, Jamie, and hello, Chairman Lieber and fellow board members. My name's Anthony Fabrizio. I'm the Deputy Business Unit Leader for Stations. I'm here today to provide an update on the Stations program. Today, I'll provide an overview of the program since we last met in July of last year. I'll provide a brief look at our accomplishments over the past year, our goals for this year, and an overview of the ADA program. I'll introduce alternative delivery methods that the business unit is implementing, namely public-private partnerships, design build, and bundling, and provide you with some project highlights. Since our last board presentation, the active projects managed by the stations program have grown from 194 to 228, with a budget of active projects totaling approximately $12.6 billion across multiple capital programs. Nearly half of our program is made up of projects to expand ADA accessibility, totaling about $6 billion. The other half consists of various state of good repair projects, including replacement of elevators and escalators and other station components, totaling approximately another $6 billion. In 2022, just jump ahead. It's out of order. Okay, there it is, thank you. In 2022, we awarded $2.2 billion worth of projects, which is $800 million more than what was awarded the previous year. This was the largest award year ever for the stations program. The total value of project completions in 2022 was $636 million. Looking to 2023, our planned awards and completions for the stations program continue to be ambitious. The project value for 2023 planned awards is $1.9 billion. In addition to keeping up the pace of the ADA program, we will also award stormwater mitigation projects and state of good repair work. Thus far, we have already awarded a $300 million project to renew 5 stations on the Flushing line. We plan to complete $510 million worth of project this year, and our completions will begin to accelerate in the coming years as we complete our large project bundles. At this month's presentation, I'd like to focus on our ADA program. Last July, the MTA announced a historic settlement with ADA advocates, affirming our commitment toward accessibility in the subway system. Specifically, we're committed to maintain this accelerated pace of ADA investment until we meet 95% system accessibility. And we're making progress toward that commitment at an unprecedented pace. Thanks to the more than $5 billion in funding included in the 2020 to 2024 capital program, we have more ADA work underway now than ever before. The 2020 to 2024 capital plan includes 67 stations, more than double as many as the previous plan.
Everyone see that?
Go back?
Everyone see that?
Yeah.
Please? Let's just not overlook that. It's basically as many as they did the last 4 capital programs.
And as you see, these aren't just plans. Since 2020, we've completed ADA work at 17 stations across 4 boroughs. As shown in the chart here, that station total is nearly 2 times the amount completed in the previous 6 years combined. And we have even more work underway. Thanks to an extremely productive 2022 commitment cycle, We are now in construction at 34 more stations. In today's presentation, I'd like to talk through some of the tools we've used to achieve this pace and the initiatives we're undertaking to go even further. Thanks to bundling and the use of alternative delivery methods and the great work of the station's team, we're not slowing down. In fact, we're accelerating. This year, we'll open 12 new ADA stations, which are all shown on the map here. And this will be the biggest year yet in terms of station contract awards, with 17 stations planned for award. So as impressive as these numbers are, I want to take a step back to remind everyone how massive an undertaking this truly is. As we've spoken about in the past, each ADA project involves much more than just installing an elevator or two. Instead, significant work must be done to ensure that our often 100-plus-year-old stations properly accommodate elevators and safely convey passengers to the platform. A great example of what goes into an ADA project is shown here at 149th Street, Grand Concourse in the Bronx, one of the projects that we'll be discussing in more detail today. This station complex is a major transfer hub joining two subway lines, the 4 and the 2-5, that serves 13,000 riders a day. In order to make this complex accessible, we constructed an entire new mezzanine area, shown here in yellow, over active subway tracks in order to connect the station's multiple platforms. We also reconstructed an historic head house at the street level. The elevators here require deep rock excavation outside the subway footprint, as well as utility relocations under the street. This complexity is representative of the needs for many of our ADA projects. Fundamental to addressing this complexity is design build. Through design build, we can advance projects more quickly and make room for innovation. We often talk about the benefits of design build in the abstract. For example, that it places the responsibility for risk in the hands of the party best equipped to address it. I would like to give a real-world example of what this means. At Queensboro Plaza, our project team recently discovered that a utility line wasn't exactly where we thought it would be based on the information available during preliminary design. Under design bid build, this would have been a problem. Either we would have had to move this utility out of the way or go through an extensive and expensive change order process to change the design of our project. With design build, our project team was equipped to change the design to address the issue quickly and cost effectively. Working with our utility partners and the City of New York, we were able to simply shift the new elevator a few feet out of the way of the existing utility. This saved us nearly $1 million and showed what the value of a well-executed design-build contract can be. This type of innovation is crucial, especially at a pivotal location in the system like Queensboro Plaza, where any opportunity to simplify the project can help us reduce impacts to customers and maintain our aggressive pace of the ADA rollout. While design build is a great delivery model, but just as important is bundling, which allows us to scale its benefits up. With the pace of projects we're undertaking, individually managing each station would be inefficient both for our in-house staff and for our contractors. Instead, we bundled projects together by the type of work or by geographical proximity. This allows us to make the most out of track outages when projects are close together, maximizing our purchase power for project materials and increase efficiency and flexibility for in-house and contractor crews that can deploy workers across multiple projects. All of this helps to bring down costs and make projects and project management more efficient. We've also been able to increase our program with many fewer contracts. In 2018, we awarded $1 billion worth of work, and it took 20 contracts to do so. Last year, we awarded more than twice the value of work in just 12 contracts. For ADA investments, that's been essential to getting more work out the door and getting more stations opened. And we're not done. Last year, we continued to advance alternate project delivery methods even further with our first public-private partnership, or P3. The P3 method is a design, build, finance, maintain model. In addition to designing and building the project, the contractor also provides financing and is responsible for maintaining the asset, in this case, elevators, at a contractually required reliability and availability benchmark. Failure to meet these benchmarks will result in reduced compensation. That financing mechanism means that the contractor has even stronger incentives to do the work right and to get it done quickly. even as it leverages private capital to allow us to move the program more quickly overall. With that, allow me to provide more detailed status updates on a few of our active ADA projects. So as mentioned earlier, this first project provides accessibility at 3 underground Bronx stations, the 149th Street Grand Concourse Station Complex, serving the IRT 2, 4, and 5 trains, and the Tremont Avenue Station, serving the IND, B, and D trains. An accessible transfer will be available between the 2 and 4, 5 trains at the 149th Street Grand Concourse Station. This project will bring ADA accessibility to a major hub and transfer point in the Bronx. This is one of our first examples of bundling compatible projects together and was funded in the prior capital program. While the project is on budget, we have encountered schedule challenges and contracted delays at both of these locations. Delays are primarily due to a building code revision requiring an area of refuge, as well as underperforming electrical and communications subcontractors. The project team has met with senior executives of the design builder and continues to work with them to mitigate and recoup some of these delays. The current forecast for completion at Tremont Avenue is June 2023, with 149th Street in January 2024. Next is ADA Package 1, which was the first major ADA bundle in the 2020 to 2024 plan. It will provide accessibility at 8 stations across 5 boroughs with 18 new elevators. The project is trending $60 million under budget thanks to favorable bids at the outset of the project and strong project management since. However, we are forecasting some delays on this project. These are largely due to delays in establishing some utility relocation agreements, property access, and easement agreements. Although the contractor's schedule shows completion of all 8 stations in December 2023, we have a high level of confidence that 5 of the 8 stations will benefit from a recovery schedule and open in July 2023. The schedule risks at the 3 remaining stations, Lorimer, Metropolitan, and Beach 67th, may delay contract substantial completion to December of 2023. Mitigations include additional contractor resources, extended shifts, and weekend work. So lessons learned from this first ADA bundle, such as performing more intensive subsurface investigation and establishing utility relocation agreements during the planning phase, are being applied by our teams on subsequent bundles, such as ADA Package 2, which I'll speak about next. ADA Package 2 is our next major bundle, where work is in progress to add 11 new elevators, making 6 new stations accessible. The project also includes replacement of elevators at 2 stations and additional state of good repair work at 1 station. This project is currently progressing on schedule and within budget, with 3 major station accessibility milestones coming up: Court Square next month, 8th Avenue in April, and 181st Street in the 3rd quarter of this year. The final highlight today is the ADA project at the 68th Street Hunter College Station, which is a design-build contract that was awarded in December 2021. This is the last of the 100 key ADA stations to be awarded and will introduce 3 new elevators, 2 new street-to-platform entrances and fare control areas, 2 reconfigured street-to-mezzanine stairs, as well as track and platform edge rehabilitation and other state-of-good repair upgrades. This project is a textbook example of construction in Manhattan in a dense, highly congested area with a plethora of underground utilities. We're excited to be progressing well on this project after an extended period of community engagement. The project is within budget and is on target for completion in December 2024. A major milestone will be achieved next month with the opening of a new street-level subway entrance constructed within the property we acquired from the Imperial House on Lexington Avenue between 68th and 69th Streets. So this concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take questions following remarks by the IEC. Mr. Calvin.
IEC is, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Calvin is going to present. Welcome.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon. My name is Calvin Gordon. I'll be providing the IEC's program review. The C&D Stations Business Unit, which is responsible for station renewals, accessibility upgrades, elevator and escalator replacements, and a state of good repair, is performing very well. As gauged by the quarterly traffic light report, out of 102 projects, only 2 have triggered schedule variances, and none, I repeat, none have triggered cost variances. There are 4 IC station reports beginning on page 17 in your committee book. Together, these projects provide 43 ADA elevators at 20 individual stations. 2 of these projects, 8 stations ADA Package 2 and 68th Street, Hunter College, are progressing well. There are 2 projects, 149th Street, Tremont Avenue, and 8 stations ADA Package 1, where the IEC has some schedule concerns. Regarding 149th Street, Tremont Avenue, at 59% complete and on budget at $163 million, 149th Street Station has a forecast 6-month delay, and Tremont Avenue Station has a forecast 10-month delay. This is primarily due to inadequate subcontractor support, general order scheduling issues, and the addition of area refuge enclosures that provide protection during emergencies, which were necessitated by a more stringent code requirement. An extension of time has been approved for Tremont Avenue to March 2023 and is pending approval for 149th Street to January 2024. The C&D project team has directed the contractor to add shifts and manpower to increase their productivity. The IC finds this is a step in the right direction. Regarding the 8 stations ADA Package 1, the project is 67% complete, on budget at $324 million. The project is seeking savings of up to $60 million, and IEC agrees that the EAC will be below the project budget. However, schedule challenges remain. The project reflected a 6-month delay in the last report and now an additional 3-month delay, as a proposed mitigation schedule is under review by C&D. The IEC has recently observed increases in manpower and work shifts, and in the IEC's opinion, the current level of productivity must be maintained to substantially complete at least 3 stations before beneficial use Q3 2023, followed by the completion of the remaining stations Q4 2023. More broadly, major challenges impacting the station programs include, first, the availability of local professionally trained workers to support the installation and commissioning of elevators during station construction. To that point, IEC finds that sufficient forces are in place for the current workload, and going forward, plans are being progressed by C&D for the implementation of a streamlined process which reduces the time and resources needed to complete the testing and commissioning phase of the project. Lessons learned are also being developed, which can be applied to recently awarded ADA station bundles 3 and 4. Secondly, minimizing costs and schedule issues that have historically impacted the station's program. We find that C&D's proactive management has raised contingency levels, allowing for recovery from discovery of unforeseen site conditions, utility agreements being in place earlier in the project, and awarding work to P3 partnerships, thereby shifting risk and providing incentives to the third-party stakeholders to deliver on-time and on-budget work. It is IEC's opinion that the impact of these decisions will only be realized after projects are completed, maintenance contracts enforced, and installations monitored for quality, reliability, and performance. And this concludes IEC comments on the station's program, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gordon, thank you. And I just, a word to our IEC partners, very thorough and helpful schedule analysis on all of the ADA projects. This is an area where our 2 teams have been collaborating, I think, very effectively, so that's
correct.
good news. Questions or comments from our board members? Mr. Albert.
When a project comes in 6, 8 months, or a year or even later, over time than we expected it would be, does the contractor pay for part of that delay, or do we absorb it all, or is it a mix?
Thank you. Well, it is dependent on the circumstances. We have a team, and I might ask our general counsel and head of our contracts department, Evan Iceland, to comment on this. We do a very aggressive analysis, and we ensure that to the extent that we can identify delays that are what, as we call non-concurrent on our contractor, the contractor is held responsible for those delays. Evan, would you like to add anything to that?
I think you did a great job.
Thank you. I've learned from the best.
But most of our contracts do, just for clarity, do include liquidated damages for contractor failure to provide, to meet certain milestones. But that's when the debate starts, right, Jamie? Is they claim that, that in a conventional contract dispute, they will claim that there was some aspect of owner behavior or our management team's behavior or site conditions that caused the delay rather than their own handling, and that's when you get into the debates. The goal is, one of the advantages of design build, since we're on this topic, and I'm pretty passionate about it, one of the advantages of design build is it's designed to reduce the range of issues that can produce those kinds of he said, she said situations, because the contractor is made responsible for the final design and for planning the staging and construction process. When you do a complete design, frequently you'll get into back and forth between the design team and the contracting team.
If a contractor gave an estimate and upon starting the work discovers that the condition of the substrata or whatever he's doing or she's doing is not what was anticipated, does that go on the back of the contractor, or is that something that we did not envision and the contract will be, changed to reflect that?
Let Evan do this, because he deals with this all the time.
So it depends on the information that we provided. We give them what we call contract indications, and if the condition differs from the information that we've provided, then he may be entitled to additional time. If it's within the reasonable foreseeability based upon the information that we provided, then it would be his cost, his time.
And I'll just say, one of the things that we've invested a lot of effort in at C&D the last few months that is going to start to pay off is what we call a new baselining procedure, a passion of my friend Mr. Roche over there. And what that means is that we're stepping up our efforts to do as much invasive testing, exploration as we can up front. The more clarity we can give up front, the more we can transfer that risk to the responsible party.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about this for a second. One of the biggest issues of delay on the first phase of Second Avenue was the discovery of geotechnical conditions that caused them to have to freeze the ground.
Yeah.
There was a condition that could only be remediated to allow them to do the proper tunneling by freezing the ground, which is not as exotic as it seems in mega construction, but it costs a ton and it costs a lot of time. So by doing extra geotechnical investigation and the preparation that Jamie's talking about, that's how you avoid, that's the biggest version of it, even the small versions. Mr. Solomon.
Just a question on the 149th Street in Tremont. It seems this, electrical subcontractor we're having a lot of difficulty with. So the revised schedule, does that assume that this particular subcontractor gets back on track? And what happens, or what recourse do we have? How much of a runway do we give this subcontractor with all of the problems that we've experienced?
Anthony, go ahead.
Our project teams are working closely with the general contractor and the subcontractors to get them back on track. We are seeing some signs of improvement on both Tremont and 149th Street. So we're expecting that they will, that they're going to meet our current projections for completion.
Yeah. And we're holding our general contractor responsible for that. There were meetings recently as last week. Spent time with the senior executives from that contractor's company on this and a couple of other projects recently, and so we are holding them accountable.
Yes. That's correct.
And I also see here the MWBE utilization is kind of lagging. And certainly I see here there's a plan, I think, to get up to 24% when the goal is 36%. Any insights about how we got to this point with this particular project?
Yeah, Anthony.
Yeah, this one's difficult. So yeah, they are underrunning significantly, and our team's trying to work with them to bring on subs in this final run. Some of it actually that they were looking at was bringing on additional electrical subcontractors and to help fill some of the gap with minority subcontractors. So that's one solution that in these executive meetings we're trying to work out to increase that participation.
But I can't resist just calling attention to the bigger point, which is one of the issues that we spent a lot of time talking to Michael Garner about and his team, is that we need more M's and W's at the early phases of projects. Too many projects end up having the minority and women-owned goals being achieved in the second half or even the last third of a project. We need to recruit to our system, in the cities as well, more outfits that are performing, whether they're as general contractors or at first-tier subs, in the first half of the job when you're doing the structure and the civil work. So you don't end up with these situations where if one contractor is too busy and falls off the list towards the end, all of a sudden you're underrunning your goals. So that is a goal for our team at DDCR to help us identify additional contractors who can work in the MTA environment. You can tell I have a little passion for some of the stuff left over from the old days. Mr. Springer indulges me very well. Is nothing else from the group on stations at this time? Thanks again to the IEC. Who is doing procurements? Mr. Iceland.
I am, sir. Yes, we have one procurement action being brought to the Capital Program Committee this month. The item seeks board approval of a modification to the Cortlandt Street number 1 line station rehabilitation contract to resolve the remaining claims and open issues on this contract in the amount of $8,675,786. And I think I can just add to this script here that this is one of those types of claims resolutions that took a while to analyze the time impacts and get to a fair result. During the course of the work, the contractor submitted claims for a time extension and impact costs and raised issues regarding claim differing site conditions and extra work that the parties were unable to resolve even after the station opened for revenue service in September of 2018. After years of claim evaluation and negotiation, the parties have now reached agreement, subject to this board's approval, to resolve those open claims. There's more detail on this item in your committee book, and I'm available to answer any questions that you have, and I submit this action for your consideration and vote.
Questions or comments? This is the project that got Judd Lowe into the penalty box, but they got out because they did top-tier job on the L train project. They worked well with bridges and tunnels on Throgs Neck after some initial challenges, and now they're doing 149th Street?
No, package 1.
Package 1, which is well under budget. So this is a belated closeout of a project that had real problems. Yep. Next question, yeah?
So I see the staff summary talks about how the Port Authority did include comments in the contract that were received from New York City Transit. How did the Port Authority factor into any of this?
This is like ancient history before I joined the MTA, but this, remember, the Cortlandt Street number 1 station was part of the World Trade Center project. It was the last piece to be rebuilt. Remember, they kept the viaduct, in the air while the whole bathtub was excavated, and then a new bathtub was created, and it sat there, 30 feet above ground. So it was the last thing to be rebuilt after the Oculus was built. The Port Authority had been responsible for that project, and it was supposed to do it with some of the federal money, I think. In the end, the decision was made to hand it over to the MTA. This all happened before I arrived in 2017, and at that point, the whole project, it's a long story, but the whole project was kind of reorganized, and we started the push to get it done. It was ultimately finished, problems, but successfully. But there's still what you're seeing is residual finger pointing about the way that the drawings changed and the terms changed Tony, help me here, in the transition from, Mr. Evan.
I was there.
Yeah, in the transition from the Port Authority to MTA, and that was some of the struggle on change orders. Yes.
So Janos, the original contract, the original plan was for the Port Authority to do this work. They were not progressing it at the pace that we needed it to get done at the time, as I recall. We negotiated with them. We were going to have to pay them some amount of money to do this work anyway. We negotiated with them to take over the contract. There had also been some disputes at the time with the Port Authority. This all came to the board, 2016, 2017, to take over the contract, to insert the things that Transit had always wanted in that contract for its station. So that was the bulletin 2, the change order that should have been in the original contract but wasn't. That's sort of the long ago history. We took over the contract. We added the scope that we needed to. The contractor progressed during that period of time. We didn't resolve the impacts associated with the added work. There turned out to be a lot of concurrent delay also. Not all of it was concurrent, but some of it was. And that's how we came to this ultimate settlement.
Bad project, great big mess. You see the result. It was a lesson for all of us. Okay, but do we have other procurements? Okay, so I'm going to call for a motion on this cleanup of a messy piece of history. Motion?
Motion.
Second, Mr. Brinkman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion carries. I think that concludes today's agenda. A motion to adjourn? Thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank you.